So the climbing Mount Stupid part is they're all like, how do I make my own token? How do I make my own stablecoin? How do I make my own CBDC? How do I make my own variant? I don't want to use Bitcoin yet. Like, granted, it's still here. This is what's forcing everybody to change.
Chase this stablecoin, invest over here while we accumulate Bitcoin for our sovereign purposes.
At some point, they're all going to figure out that there's only one of these things that has no issuer. There's only one of these things that's truly neutral. There's only one of these things that can't be stopped by anybody else or controlled by anybody else. And at the end of the day, like, that makes the most sense as global money. You've got the CEO of, or I'm sorry, the chairman now, Saylor of Strategy, visiting the largest banks in the world. You got to wonder what they're talking about.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Byte Federal podcast. And I am absolutely stoked today to be talking to Alex Stancic. How are you, Alex?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me, man.
Awesome,
glad to
buddy.
be here.
Hey, man, one of the reasons why I'm so stoked is because your show, Café Bitcoin on Twitter, to me, it just sort of marks the pinnacle of Bitcoin culture. And it just, I mean, I met so many great people through that show. I learned so much. You expose so many great voices in our space that are still active and prominent voices today. So, I mean, I really miss it. I wish we still had it because you did a fantastic job. But maybe for people who maybe weren't around in Bitcoin when you were running Café Bitcoin, maybe give them a little bit of background about yourself, the show, and what you're doing today and kind of how you got there.
Right. So where to start? I guess going back to when I started sort of going down the rabbit hole in Bitcoin, I was learning as much as I could, as many people do. And many people follow this pattern, right? When you start figuring out, maybe I need to learn more about Bitcoin, you might start out reading an article or two, or maybe you read a book, or usually people will watch a couple short podcasts or video clips or whatever. And if something intrigues them, they might research a little deeper. So you get all the typical things where you get the full range of podcasts, like then you're reading books, and then you're like maybe going to meetups, and then spaces and all that other kind of stuff. It's like when I first started looking at Bitcoin, I probably, when I'm interested in a subject, I will allocate time daily to study it. So in other words, maybe I'll allocate 15 minutes or 30 minutes a day, and I'll be very precise about making sure I spend that amount of time studying the thing, right? So I was running a physical gold fund based out of Switzerland for like 8 years at the time that I really started sort of going down the rabbit hole. And it started out like, 30 minutes a day, turned into an hour a day, turned into 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day. I was literally at one point, I'm talking to clients about my gold fund. I hang up the phone, I pick up a book, and I'm reading about Bitcoin. This, by the way, was when I started to realize, man, I'm in the wrong industry, right? But regardless, it was probably 2021, end of 2021. I was jumping on it was the end of 2020. I was jumping on a bunch of spaces on Twitter that were Bitcoin spaces, and I would jump in there to learn. And like, something that was very difficult for me is that in those kind of spaces, they seemed very chaotic to me at the time. There were people talking over each other, shouting at each other. People were impolite to each other. And I mean, a lot of times they were just way off topic. Like, people are talking about their cat and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, man, I don't have time for this. I'm busy. I know a lot of people are super busy. And like, sure, there are people that probably can hang out in spaces all day and they have nothing else to do. And like, good for them, right? I'm not judging anybody, but I didn't have that luxury, right? And I know lots of other people didn't as well. So I started my own. I was like, you know what? Let me just see if I can get really smart Bitcoiners in here to teach me. Like, I wanted to learn. And that's what happened. It turned into a thing where it was like, I had two rules. My two rules were number one, just be polite to each other. There's no yelling over each other, no talking over each other, no, like, if you're a jerk and you're acting like a sociopath, you're done. I had very low tolerance for that kind of stuff. And the other thing is that you have to be bringing good content. By good content, I mean actually teaching somebody something that matters. If you're here to talk about your cat, you are wasting my time and you're wasting everybody else's time. And I have no tolerance for that nonsense. So by enforcing those two rules viciously, it started to create a culture where I didn't have to enforce those rules anymore. Everybody just knew, when you come in here, we're going to be nice to each other. We're going to let each other talk. We're going to stay on topic. And that turned into a really good kind of neutral ground for really, like, everybody in Bitcoin, as far as I know, came on there to talk.
Yeah.
And it was just like a hangout. Like, it was very, it seemed just very family like, you know what I mean? Like, everybody was cool with each other. You had founders of almost every company in the space came on there. Developers came on there, just philosophers, all the podcast people, just really all of the leaders in the space came, and it was just a cool place to hang out and talk about Bitcoin.
Absolutely. I loved every minute of it. And like I said, I learned so much from so many people, and many of those people were the first time I'd heard about them, and they're still prominent in the space today. So, I mean, you were really ahead of your time. And I think you nailed it. And I thank you for it, because it was really instrumental in my evolution and understanding about Bitcoin. I'm curious with what your view is now of Bitcoin Twitter versus Bitcoin X. Do you think it's changed?
Yeah, it's changed a lot. I think, well, it seems to me, and part of this is probably the algorithms on X. I saw a post from one of the guys who's in charge of this stuff at X. He basically said if your posts are Bitcoin content, they intentionally deboost them by 70%. Like, I have the tweet, I have a copy of it.
We've noticed that, yeah.
Yeah, so like that's probably part of it. But a lot of the old, sort of OGs, I don't even see them anymore. I think a lot of people are now over on Nostr instead. There's a lot of people who I follow on Twitter who I just don't see their posts anymore. So there's that part of it going on. And then there's the other part of it going on where there's this whole new cohort of people who, it just feels very different. Like, they don't feel like, so I talked about this in Naples last week, where it's like, you know, you had the earliest adopters of Bitcoin were basically the cypherpunks, right? Like, the super nerds, and like, this is amazing. And it was a very small, very vertically integrated group of people. And then the next group of people that came were basically financially sovereign minded people, which was our cohort, I think.
Yeah.
Where it was all the people like, wow, this really makes sense from a personal financial perspective. If I can have this form of this asset or this form of money that no one can control, no one can stop me from using it, no one can take it from me. And it's looking like this thing is going to be around for a minute. It's super secure. It's never been hacked. And it has all the markings of what will slowly, probably just from a behavioral incentives perspective, just slowly continue to grow. Like, this makes a lot of sense, right? Then the next sort of, where we are today, I think, is this next sort of group of people. Maybe some of them are more sovereign minded, but I think a lot of them are just number go up people. And they're people who, they're just looking for something to escape inflation. This is really what everybody on the planet is doing. Like, when people are buying gold, real estate, art, all of the things, right? Why are we doing that? Do we really want the real estate and the gold and all that? Nah, not really, if you think about it, right? Like, because that's just an extra step and it's unnecessary. If your money grew in 10% in purchasing power by 10% every single year, my guess is people would just leave it in dollars. Right? It's because the purchasing power of the dollars is collapsing over time. It forces people to do all these types of things, right? So whether people understand that consciously or not, this is what they're doing. And I think that's one of the reasons why. And look, this is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, I think, if you took humanity as a whole and you sliced it into people's psychological profiles, the majority of the people on the planet are not sovereign-minded financially. They don't even understand this stuff. Who has time to study monetary history and monetary theory and really understand what's happening? Not that many people, to be fair. Most people are just running on that hamster wheel all day long, and they've been doing it their whole life, and all they know is they have to run faster and faster and faster, and things become more unaffordable as they go. That's all they know, right? So they're looking for, how do I escape this rat race? Like, how do I get off of that hamster? Is there any hope? right? You look at the younger generations now and they're like, man, I'm never going to buy that. I'm never going to afford that $500,000 house. Are you joking
Right.
me? I could barely buy ramen every month. So that's where I think a lot of these folks are coming from. And so some of them may at some point grok the sovereign mindset and grok kind of the purpose of having really sound money that can't be taken from you or controlled. But I think their more immediate concern is, how do I do better?
Yeah.
This is really rough for a lot of people.
I want to go back to the X discussion, but you reminded me of the Gen Z panel at Bitcoin Day Naples. And those kids, even though they were touching on all the inflation and monetary expansion as sort of a core understanding of the Bitcoin technology, they were very much interested in the freedom and the sovereignty that they felt Bitcoin could deliver for them. And so that was, to me, I mean, one of the best panels, because it just got me so excited for the future, that if these kids are figuring this out and they can spread the message at that early age, it was very hopeful for me. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think it's fantastic. I think that they are the future, and I hope to see more of it. Like, they're some of the most based, like, grounded young people that I've run into, and I agree. Like, that gives me a lot of hope. I also think they're currently fighting this uphill battle, right? If you listen to them, you know, their peers, a lot of them, and when they're younger, especially in the high school range, they're not really thinking about this stuff.
Right.
When they get into college and they're semi on their own and they're starting to pay bills, that's when this kind of starts kicking in as, oh my gosh, is this what adulting is? And then and then it starts to make sense that, like, wow, some of this stuff might be broken, and I might need to figure out a better way. So yeah, I think as people switch on to that, assuming they maintain an open mind and critical thinking, and don't suffer too much from just doing what everybody says you should do, then yeah. And the youngest generations, man, they're very conservative and very based.
Seems that way.
Like,
that's what I'm experiencing with my kids and their friends.
Yeah. How old are your kids?
20 and 17.
Okay. Yeah, that's very cool. Gives me hope.
Yeah, for sure. So back to X. What I mean, I have lots of ideas, but I'm interested in what your thoughts are as to why they would suppress the Bitcoin message.
I don't really know. Maybe they just find us annoying.
We are, but
to be fair, you know what I mean? I'm thinking of those
we
memes.
We even annoy each other, right?
I'm thinking of those memes, right? I mean, this is where the concept of a toxic Bitcoin maximalist even came from, right?
Right.
Like, because Bitcoiners are ruthless.
Yeah.
Or have been. And by the way, I can see the point of all of that, and I get it. But I've been a big advocate forever of, how about be kind to people? Right? Just be nice, have grace, meet people where they are. Not everybody understands what you do. Some people are just too stressed out and have no time. You know what I mean? So like, just kind of take the, I think we're at a place right now where that message of, like, have fun, stay or stay poor, have fun staying poor. And, like, I don't have time to explain this to you, you're just too dumb. That's not going to work for the next 99% of the population, right? We need to change our tactics. Like, Bitcoiners are our own worst marketers, right? It worked while it needed, in that time frame, it needed to be that way, because it was very sort of, I mean, to be fair, it was kind of like, it was almost psychological warfare with the banks and all of the institutions and just everybody saying, you know, Bitcoin is for, first of all, it's a joke. We're going to laugh at, ha ha ha, it's irrelevant. I'm not even talking about this thing. And then they spend all this time trying to discredit it, right? That went on for years. It's only for money launderers and so on and so forth. And finally, it's at the point where institutional adoption is actually happening. All the largest institutions in the world have bent the knee. Even Jamie Dimon, You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like for like 10 years at Davos, he's like, oh, it's just for criminals. Every major organization in the world, from the IMF to the European, the EU, to everybody, it's like, okay, I guess this thing's not going away, and we either need to contend with it or we need to make our own, right?
So you talked a
So
little bit about that in Naples, and I thought the way you described the Bitcoin evolution within government was not only funny but brilliant. Because you do see them talking about Bitcoin, but then doing a lot of crypto stuff. So maybe you can
sure,
break that down from your understanding of Bitcoin adoption in high net worth families and family offices, um, to what you think is going on at the government level.
sure. So, excuse me. Essentially, we're at the point where I think a lot of, well, if you look at institutional adoption, we haven't even scratched the surface of the iceberg yet, right? It's just the tiniest amount. Yet, like, BlackRock's leaning in. They just bought like $500 million of strategy securities, preferreds, so on and so forth. And then you see there are central banks buying it now. There are other central banks investigating it. You've got the CEO or I'm sorry, the chairman now, Saylor of strategy, visiting the largest banks in the world. You got to wonder what they're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's obviously related to Bitcoin in some way, probably also related to strategy and what they're doing. But you're just seeing it's at the point now where institutions, I think, are actually digging in and taking it seriously to the point where they realize we need to study this asset. Maybe we're not ready to take a position, but we have to study it. We have to figure out what this thing is. We have to figure out why it's not gone away. We have to figure out why the United States of America is embracing this thing, why they're literally saying, like, this is the future. You know what I noticed this year at Davos? When you look at the heads of the largest banks talking about it, they're all embracing it now. They're all literally saying this type of technology is the future. They've come full circle, right? They went from laughing at it, not taking it seriously, to attacking it, criticizing it. And finally, they're like, well, I guess we're got to adopt. In fact, they're like, we're excited about this as
Mm-hmm.
the future of banking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who would have thought you would have been
Mm-hmm.
hearing that, like, the heads of the largest banks in the world saying this kind of stuff? But what that really means to today is I've observed this pattern over and over and over again, where people will take a look at Bitcoin and sort of in their first year or so, when they're looking at it, and they haven't really studied it deeply enough to understand all the ramifications of what it means. They're like, okay, this is really cool. These people are making a lot of money. How do I make a lot of money with my own version of that?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is what I call climbing Mount Stupid. This is
Mm-hmm.
what I said in Naples. This is climbing Mount Stupid. A lot of people go through this process. I went through this process.
Sure. So
Like
did I.
back when I was running my gold fund, this was actually the reason I started studying it. Back when I was running my gold fund, there was a group of gold investors who were like, hey, let's make a gold backed token. This is really cool stuff. And I started researching it. And that's when I was like, huh, A, that's not going to work. But B, Bitcoin, there's something to this thing that's different from all this other stuff. Right. And so the climbing Mount Stupid part is they're all like, how do I make my own token? How do I make my own stablecoin? How do I make my own CBDC? How do I make my own variant? I don't want to use Bitcoin yet. Like, granted, it's still here. This is what's forcing everybody to change, right? Because it's not going away. And at this point, everybody's starting to lean in, right? But how do I do one that I can control, that I can issue, that I can give to my friends, and we can get filthy rich on, and we'll control the whole system forever? That's where their heads are at right now. It's climbing Mount Stupid. And what I was saying is that at some point, they're all going to figure out that there's only one of these things that has no issuer. There's only one of these things that's truly neutral. There's only one of these things that can't be stopped by anybody else or controlled by anybody else. And at
Yeah.
the end of the day, like, that makes the most sense as global money. Like, if you're Russia, why do you want to use money that the US controls? If you're the US, why do you want to use money that China controls? Or, JP Morgan, or you name it, any centralized system. Like, people, you know, what's really funny at WEF, they're figuring out, oh my gosh, I guess we don't actually run the world because everybody's pushing back against these ideas we've had for the last 10 years. Right. So it's like, I think anything that they put together, like this CBDC that they're about to roll out in the EU, I think it's going to be an abysmal failure.
Mhm.
Every single CBDC pilot that's been launched by every country so far, abysmal failure. Why? Because it's just more of the same. It's centralization and control. They watch everything you do. They're going to monitor every single transaction. And if your politics or your thoughts or whatever are incorrect,
Mhm.
we're just going to lock you down. You don't get to buy meat. You don't get to buy gas. You don't get to pay
Right.
for your heating bill. You go ahead and freeze during the winter, or just shut your cars off. All the things, right? So, I think there's a lot of humans who are like, yeah, that sounds like it sucks. I'd
Yeah.
rather be able to like be a little free. How about that? I don't think there's any human on the planet that doesn't want to be free.
Yeah. Exactly. They just have to figure it out first.
Yeah,
The
they have to figure it out.
what do you think then about like the Tether sanctions, like meaning when it's been shut off for particular countries, right? I think the Venezuela freezing of the Tether account was the most recent example, but I just saw like Iran bought a ton of Tether recently.
Yeah.
I mean, is this waking them up? Is this waking up other sovereign entities to the fact that Bitcoin is the only truly decentralized, sovereign, non-issuer asset? I mean, are they getting it? Or are they just saying, oh, I guess we need to create our own Tether?
Probably both.
Yeah.
I think they're good. It's going to take a lot more pain.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like, when do people change? Sometimes people change because they're looking down the road and they're going, okay, I see all these things that are coming into place that are going to prevent me from transacting with others. They're going to be some kind of control on me, and I don't want to have that. So I'm going to prepare ahead of time so I don't have to deal with that. That's all Bitcoiners, right? Bitcoiners
Mm-hmm.
saw the writing on the wall and they're like, yeah, we ain't going to do that. We're going to do this instead. Right. So in some ways, Bitcoiners are some of the most forward looking, intelligent people on the planet, in my opinion. Right. Because they saw all this stuff coming. But a lot of times people don't switch until there's pain.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of specifically, there was this interview with, I think, Eric Trump, and the person who was interviewing basically said, why are you guys so into this Bitcoin thing? Like, why is this so important to you? And he's like, well, we got massively debanked because we were on our political ideas were not acceptable. So, like, you try conducting business, and I'm paraphrasing. I don't know if he said exactly these words, but this is the gist. He's like, you try conducting business where you have to send $100 million wire, and you can't because all your bank accounts are basically frozen.
Yep.
They'd not broken any laws.
Right.
They'd done anything legally wrong. They just weren't liked by the current political regime. That can happen to anybody, by the way, because the other team can get into power at any time, right? So it's like, I think it just takes enough pain. You look at Russia right now. Russia's been sanctioned heavily by the United States of America. So it occurred to them pretty immediately, like, maybe I don't want to use their system. What did they do? They started setting up all kinds of unilateral trade deals. They're leaning into Bitcoin, by the way.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that, but there's a lot of mining going on over in Russia. They've green lighted Bitcoin for trade settlement. So there's a lot of this stuff that's happening.
When I think about what's happening with gold and silver right now globally, and in your background, I want to ask you if you think. Well, I don't want to frame the question. I don't want to steer you in any way. What do you think that Bitcoin, gold and silver are signaling about the current state of the world, about central bank adoption of more sovereign assets as opposed to dollars, and where that puts Bitcoin now and in the future?
Yeah, so great questions. I think what's happening in gold and silver, and this is just my opinion, is that two things are occurring. Number one, gold and silver are finally catching up to all the debasement that's been going on for the last 20 some odd years, right? I was a gold investor starting in 2007, silver investor as well, around the same time frame. And I held gold for a really long time. And I will tell you that was one of the most painful, depressing periods of my entire life because the performance was absolutely horrible, right? All the gold people are like, oh my gosh, they're printing so much money. Gold is going to go up. And you know what? They were right. However, there are a lot of mechanisms in place to sort of dampen what probably should have been occurring in the price of gold and silver for a really long time. And I think what has changed that, so you have, first of all, you have that going on where it's kind of like you can think of it like a beach ball that's being pushed underwater and held down, right? So there's a lot of pressure already. And then you start to see the international cohesion in the international monetary system starting to come apart. And this is, by the way, Ray Dalio has been talking about this like crazy right now. He's like, there's these really long trends that occur in human history. And we're in this period of time where the established international order, as far as the monetary system goes, is unraveling right now. Ever since Bretton Woods back in 1944, the US dollar was basically the anchor for the global monetary system. And it itself, as well, was anchored to gold. That changed, as you know, in 1971. Nixon took us off, closed the gold window, basically said no dollar redeemability for gold. So ever since 1971 to now, we've been in this free-floating kind of a thing where the US dollar is not anchored, right? Yet the whole world was using it. Then we got to this point where, and this started kind of post 9/11, where the United States started weaponizing the US dollar, essentially, globally. And this was one of the dumbest things we've ever done, in my opinion. Like, we never should have done that, because you've got this monopoly board, for example, and on the monopoly board, you've got all the countries of the world. Everybody's playing Monopoly, and the United States is the banker, right? And it was great, right up until the banker was like, oh, no, you over there, we're going to take your stuff, and you can't play anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, what am I supposed to do? Well, obviously, alternative monopoly boards are going to start popping up, because they have to live, right? They're not going to just be like, oh, I guess we're going to do nothing. Well, we're just going to die, right? No, they're going to do what they have to do. And so it's caused the unraveling of the global monetary system, and everybody sees it. And so what's happening is that a lot of central banks are falling back to what they know, gold. But again, the problems with gold is that gold is not fit for a modern digital life. Well, I mean, as humans, we're going to continue to progress. Everything's moving digital. This phenomenon has been going on for 30, 40 years now. And it's not slowed down. It's only accelerating. Eric, think of all the things that used to be physical or used to be analog and are now digital. Mm-hmm. It's just a never-ending process, right? We're digitizing everything. And you've got the youngest generations of humans. They're digital natives. All of this is completely natural to them and makes absolute sense. They're like, gold? Why the heck? What? That doesn't even connect for them. It's all the old people who think that. And I think over the next 20 years, probably, as these generations of people, the older people, die off, their ideas are going to go with them. And like, it's all going to change. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did. You did. But I want to keep going on this thread. So, a lot myself and a couple of my friends will talk about the evolution of this, like, how central banks they have turned obviously to what they know, gold and silver. Mm-hmm. And you said even earlier, they're starting to study Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. So, the move to gold and silver is serving is fixing the balance sheets of a lot of these sovereign entities. And then, though, as they're studying Bitcoin, do you think there'll be a tipping point at which we move from, okay, we've stabilized the balance sheet, now we need to start thinking about how do we do global trade with a neutral reserve asset,
Right.
Oh, wow, we figured it. We stopped climbing Mount Stupid, right? We figured it out. It's Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Is that sort of the game plan that you see? And if so, how long do you think that takes?
Yeah. I mean, that's totally logical and reasonable. It just, I hate using the word inevitable because people are like, no, that's not. But if you understand human nature and you understand the difficulty of gold settlement, it's so obvious, because this is actually what switched me from gold to Bitcoin. You might have heard me tell the story. If you have a minute, I'll tell the story.
Yeah,
But
please do.
it was in 2020, the height of COVID. I'm managing this gold fund out of Switzerland. The Swiss government grounds all the airplanes. No one takes off, no one lands, right? And so the thing that I realized at that point in time is that I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, man, if somebody called me, one of my investors called me and said, I want you to deliver $20 million of gold bars to this country over here in this vault, I could not comply. I could not do it. This is what you call a failure to deliver in the gold industry, which is really bad. And the problem with gold is that it requires physical delivery for true final settlement.
Yep.
Okay. And that involves a lot of human beings and a lot of logistics. It involves the vault guys, the truck guys, the armored truck guys. It involves customs, ground crews at the airport, air crews. Same thing on the other side. Anybody could mess that up. Anybody could call their cousin who's in a gang. Trucks are in transit, hit them here. Like they take precautions against that kind of stuff. But my point is, you need human cooperation for final settlement.
Lots of human cooperation.
Lots of human cooperation. Lots of things can go wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And so at this point, I'm studying Bitcoin, and it occurred to me at that time, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. So with this Bitcoin thing, I can send any amount of value, billions of dollars, to the other side of the planet instantly, basically at the speed of light, at almost no cost. I don't need anybody's help or permission, and no one can stop me. And it'll be way more secure.
Right.
Like that blew my mind.
Right.
It's a neutral asset with no issuer. It's absolutely secure. Never been hacked. It's got more computing power behind it than any network human race has ever constructed. Like, I don't see how in the future, eventually, central banks do not adopt this thing over time. It's not in their interest to do so, right? Because they need to be the issuer of the currency. That is in their interest. So what I think is going to end up happening is that Bitcoin recollateralizes the monetary system, the same way gold collateralized the US dollar money system prior to 1944.
Right.
And as far as time, honestly, I don't know. They're still all climbing Mount Stupid right now. That could take years.
Right. So a couple of things there, because I agree with you, but I wanted to dig into some of the nuances. I think one, I think you're right. They want to use Bitcoin to remonetize their currency, and I think they want their currency to have private transactions, and that's one of the, I think, holdbacks for Bitcoin being used by these sovereign entities for lots of payments. So I do think they want it to be sort of the sovereign asset under the hood, so to speak. So I wonder about your thoughts on that. And then also, what do you say to people that push back and say, "Well, we'll just tokenize gold, and we'll just trade gold tokens on a blockchain. It'll be wonderful."
Yeah. So I mean, look, there's advantages to doing that are better than moving gold for final settlement every single time, but there's also disadvantages, right? So like, I mean, one way you might look at it is if you just buy the gold ETF, you've essentially done the same thing. They tokenized the gold.
Yeah.
Right. The difference is that I can't sell my GLD shares directly to you and vice versa. Right. I can sell them on the market. They have to go through a broker, and maybe you're the buyer on the other end. But I'm not going to call you up and go, "Hey, Paul, let's swap GLD shares."
Like tokenization is a 1 to 1.1 upgrade, where Bitcoin is a
correct.
0 to 1 upgrade.
It's not a step change upgrade, right? The way they're pitching this is that it's a revolutionary step change upgrade. In some things, I can see how that would be super useful. Deeds, things like that. If you can take out all the middlemen, between certain types of transactions, I can see how tokenization actually makes a great deal of sense for purposes of efficiency. If you have this on an immutable blockchain, like if everything's tied back into the Bitcoin blockchain forever, that seems like a pretty good way to store information to me. But the problem that you recreate specifically with gold, tokenized gold, is you have reintroduced this concept of centralized custody of the underlying asset. You're basically right back to the same problem you had before. There are people, humans, who you have to trust to guard that gold. And there are humans that you have to trust to audit that gold. And so if you trust those guys, fine. But to me, you've just reintroduced that same problem.
Yep, 100%. And then what do you think then about my comment about central banks wanting private transactions?
Elaborate on that. What do you mean?
Well, what I'm getting at, right, is, I mean, we've uncovered all sorts of payment activity in the U.S. government that and at the federal level that we had no idea had existed, right, recently. And there seems to be lots of, especially in the time of need, a lot of things that happen that we get a narrative about the transaction, but we don't get to actually see the transaction. And sort of putting those transactions on a blockchain where you could see wallet addresses sending and receiving at a central bank level could pull a lot of things into question that maybe they don't want questioned.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
And so that to me seems to be like the biggest drawback to central bank adoption, but makes sense from the perspective of if you want it to underpin your currency, and then you want to have a stablecoin / CBD type system where you have private transactions.
You could, I mean, I don't understand why you couldn't have all of the above. Like if I'm a central bank, why couldn't central banks get together and create some kind of like fediment system that all the central banks use?
Good point. Like a layer 2 where they could do private transactions.
Sure. They could create their own lightning system, so to speak, where there were, I think there are ways they could do that and maintain privacy. And that's very important to them. And I understand that. People in general don't like it. And I understand that too. Because then, I mean, if you, I'm a big advocate of transparency in everything governments do, right? There should be transparency because there should be accountability to the taxpayer. If you have people that you're actually taking their money and you're saying you're doing good things with the money, but you're really not, that's obviously not something that's acceptable. And a lot of people are pissed off about it, right? Rightfully so. The flip side of that is I can also see why sovereigns might want to be able to move large amounts of value without necessarily disclosing that they're doing it, right? Because this moves markets. Like a lot of people are like, oh, central banks are never going to buy Bitcoin. It's like, how do you know they're not buying Bitcoin right now? You think they actually have to tell you that they're doing that? They don't. Like back when I was in the gold industry, then this was prior to it becoming like widely known. Like because of my contacts in Switzerland through the refineries, we knew how much gold was moving to China, but China was not reporting that. Right. It was all off balance sheet transactions, so to speak. So my point with that is if you think central banks are going to tell you they're acquiring Bitcoin, I'm not sure that's the way it's going to go down. Right. I also think, to your point before, I think what's going to happen is at some point, some central bank, if a central bank has not already figured this out, at some point, some will, they're going to print money and they're going to buy Bitcoin. And whoever does that first is going to have a massive advantage over the others. Yeah. And it's only a matter of time. Like this is not like some people may like, that's ridiculous. So far-fetched.
Like if anybody's in a position to do it, I mean, Russia and China are in the perfect position to do that.
Sure. Well, they could do it
without having to answer to any Western central banks,
Yeah, they could do it with mining right now without even telling you.
Yeah.
Right? Bhutan did it.
Yeah, 100%. That was awesome. One more question about gold, and then I want to get on to another topic. But do you think we have the gold in Fort Knox?
Who knows? That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
There's no way to know.
Yeah.
Right? It's trust me, bro.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. All right. We'll leave that at that's to be determined.
Yeah.
So I mean, you've spent a huge part of your career talking to high net worth individuals, family offices on sovereign assets. So I, in particular to Bitcoin, I'm wondering what you've seen in regards to the uptake, adoption, sophistication of the questions. Like how were they? How has this changed since the Café Bitcoin days to where we are today?
I would say you can break family offices down into different groups. You've got sort of the smaller ones who the family members themselves are managing it. You've got some of the larger ones where a lot of that stuff is more outsourced to professional money managers. The approaches are a little different when you have professional money managers in the picture. These are fiduciaries. Fiduciaries are generally way more conservative, as you know. They have to be by nature of how they operate. So the approaches will vary. It also, there's cultures within families, just like there's cultures within towns and groups of people. Some families are more conservative fiscally than others. Some of them are more sovereign minded than others. There are some who absolutely do not trust traditional finance or even the government as far as they can throw them, which isn't far. And then there's others who are like, we've made a lot of money through the processes that exist, so we like it, right?
Right.
So you're going to have a full spectrum. I guess in the last 5 years, I would say it was mostly the sovereign-minded family offices that were coming to Bitcoin, studying it, understanding it deeply, doing self-custody, doing some version of self-custody, multi-sig, so on and so forth. And I think the ones that are looking at it right now, you'll still get more family offices that are sovereign-minded, because I honestly think we haven't even scratched the surface of the surface. I mean, this is the thing that keeps blowing my mind. We've mined over 95% of the Bitcoin that will ever be mined, and like 99% of the population doesn't own any of it.
Right.
And people look at the price and they're like, oh my gosh, it's $90,000. I've missed it. Like, I've completely missed it. Everybody must own Bitcoin. Nobody owns Bitcoin. Right? Yeah. So, I mean, what percentage of the family offices have bought Bitcoin right now? I'd say less than 1%. It's a tiny fraction, right? Wow. But to answer your question, I think we're going to move more in the direction of when it comes to these kind of investors, professional custody. We're going to move away from self-custody. We're going to move towards professional custody for the most part. And by the way, I think that's true for probably a vast majority of the rest of adopters from here on out. Yeah. And I know Bitcoiners hate that, and I hate that personally because I'm a sovereign.
But do you still think the maxi or pleb is going to have the right and the legal framework to conduct self-custody, or I think we're losing that as well?
Hard to say. I think if the banks have their way, especially the central banks, self-custody will not be a thing. Look, I'll just be very direct. If I'm a central bank, my ideal situation is Bitcoin is made a asset of critical strategic importance to the nation, every nation on the planet. Therefore, no private ownership. You need to sell it to us. Self-custody is illegal. Like, that's what I think they will push for. Whether they get that or not, I don't know. We're going to see. I think we're at the point where we're in this massive upheaval, major fourth turning.
Right.
Trust has been being lost in institutions left and right. I mean, you've got something like $1 trillion a year of taxpayer money is going to fraud right now. So many Americans that I know are so pissed off. They're like, are you telling me I have worked my entire life, you take half of my money and you're giving it to these people who aren't even legally in this country, creating fake enterprises, and you're just giving it to them?
Yeah.
In exchange for what? Votes? To implement laws and policies that I don't agree with? It's gotten really out of hand. So, So you have these different forces kind of pushing on each other, and I think there's a lot of people who are pretty fed up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If central banks go to move and say, well, only central banks can own Bitcoin, you guys can't own it. You have to turn it over. It's going to be illegal. We're going to make self custody illegal. I don't know how well that's going to work.
Yeah.
Like me personally, I'm going to tell them to pound sand. It's like, really, come get it.
Mm-hmm.
Bring friends.
Yeah. I truly believe America would do that. But probably not every country.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, it's.
I think that battle. I think that's the final boss. Like
right?
A lot of people are like,
dude. I remember years ago, and this has stuck with me ever since. This is pre Café Bitcoin. Willie Woo said, "World War III is going to be between the people and their governments."
Ooh,
and I was like, "Wow."
Yeah,
it's pretty.
And that would not have hit with me 5 years ago, but it, man,
it's interesting. It just struck me at that point. I think it was like 2018, 2019 when I heard him say that. And I was like, when you start taking that long view and what governments need to achieve versus what people want for their own life and their own sovereignty, you can see those flames getting stoked slowly but surely.
Yeah, for sure. And the incentives are becoming more powerful. The incentives for governments to increase centralized control and surveillance of everything continue to grow.
Mm-hmm.
The incentives for people to basically say pound sand continues to grow. So yeah, that's very interesting. I think I really hope that kind of thing doesn't end up kinetic. I think in a lot of places of the world, it probably will to some degree or more. You're already starting to see the signs of it. But the flip side of that, and this is what a lot of Bitcoiners have theorized over time, is if you take all of your economic energy out of the system, then they have no economic energy to spend on all the bombs and the guns and the surveillance, right?
But isn't that, see, that I agree with you 100%. And I think that's the only true option we have is to opt out, which is why a lot of this centralization and paper Bitcoin is so aggravating to many of us. Not, and I don't want to be that Bitcoiner who's like, oh, Sailor can't buy, we can't let them buy any more coin. Like, it's everybody can do whatever they want to do. It's a open, free protocol, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you start to war game some of these scenarios, you have a smaller and smaller and smaller percentage of people doing self-custody. You get weaker and weaker in regards to your ability to opt out of the system and defund the system.
True, but again, what causes people to move in the directions of self-custody? Getting attacked, right?
Yeah.
And so 100%. Is it more or less likely that people will get attacked moving into the future by their own government? I think it's more likely.
Yeah.
Right? Just for simple, and it will be over stuff that the government thinks is simple, like just this is regular stuff you should just comply with, right? But the people are like, we're tired of this stuff, man.
Yeah.
We're just tired of it. Like, leave us the hell alone. Like, we didn't put you in charge to make our lives living hell. That's not why we created the government, right? Yeah. But the people in the government are like, well, you need to behave and do what we want you to do. And it's just coming to a head.
Yeah. Right? We just recently here in Florida, as you may or may not know, had a lady get a visit by a local police department because she said some things online that they didn't like. And of course, we see that in the UK, we see that in Australia pretty frequently, but that was the first case that I'd seen in Florida, and I was like, "Whoa, what the heck?"
Yeah. So what will probably continue to happen is as the government becomes more desperate for control, they're going to turn the screws, and as they turn the screws, people are going to be like, "Ouch! Don't do that." Oh, I'm trapped in your system. What is this Bitcoin thing? Right. Better move my Bitcoin out of your system.
Good point.
It's going to cause people to move in that direction over time.
Yeah, COVID had that effect, right? COVID really changed the mindset for people globally in a big way.
huge wake up call.
Yeah.
Huge wake up call.
Yeah.
And there are some portion of the population that's still sort of under the spell, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And they still believe it. They believe all the things they were told still to
Mm-hmm.
this day, even
Mm-hmm.
though we have mountains of evidence to the contrary at this point. But yeah, I think critical thinkers, open-minded people, people who aren't just going to do what the system tells them and realize, man, there's something not right with that.
Yeah.
If they get the screws put to them, they're going to find the option and they're going to switch.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think you and I are aligned in that. It seems to me that human nature is things don't get fixed until they're broken.
A lot of
So
times.
it aligns with for most people to be like, once they've lost something, they fight to try and figure out how to get it back. And so this kind of aligns with our, Bitcoin, the Bitcoin X signal being suppressed. And it feels like there's a undercurrent of censorship that still is quietly being implemented. There's a, there seems to be an undercurrent of like, chase this shitcoin, chase this stable coin, invest over here while we accumulate Bitcoin for our sovereign purposes. Get your paper Bitcoin versus your real Bitcoin. All of these things are just sort of antithetical to what we were all trying to achieve in 19, 20, 21, 22, 23.
Mm-hmm.
And it might take, like you said, it might take a shot across the bow before people wake up and figure out that, maybe, this thing that's been my number go up, maybe this is, I need to be thinking about this totally differently now.
Yeah. Human nature, man.
Yeah,
That's how we
for
learn.
sure. So speaking of sovereignty, you're a firearms instructor.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you can tell us a little bit. I know you've been doing some training for people at the Bitcoin conferences. I don't know if you also probably do it outside of the Bitcoin space, but what does that look like? What kind of feedback are you getting from that? And I want to hear from you, sort of like your importance or how you hold your ability to handle a firearm. Where does it rank in that sovereign stack for you individually and you or for people at large?
That's a great question. So for me, it ranks pretty high because if you use Bitcoin in the way it was intended, meaning you do your own custody, then you are in charge of your own security. So it's like when I was, when I'm helping people decide if they want to do self-custody or not, I will usually tell them like the awesome thing about self-custody is like you are 100% completely in charge. All right. The bad thing about it is you are 100% completely in charge. Like if you screw this up, it's not good, right? But you're the custodian, right? And it becomes a bearer asset, so to speak, in a way, which means that your own security is your financial security as well, right? So like if you have no physical security, you've never given a thought to physical security, your Bitcoin is at risk. Someone could take it from you. And this has been true for all of human history prior to digital banking and all the things we use today, right? So this is not a new concept to humans. It's always been this way. Like if back in the day, if I have a treasury, so to speak, I better be armed or have guys protecting that, right? And we do it still today. The reason you don't always have guards in banks anymore is because they don't have any money in there anymore. It's all digital, right? They don't even carry very much cash anymore relative to what they used to have. So, how did I arrive at this? Well, first of all, I'm prior military. I've always been interested in being able to defend myself and my family, but more so also just as a citizen of America, I believe it is our duty to own firearms and know how to use them. The founding fathers of our country basically said that every single able-bodied male is the militia. This is not like the National Guard. It's not some specific group that the government creates. It's the people themselves. And many of the founders said it exactly like that. It is the body of the people. And it is your duty as an American to own firearms and understand how to use them, train with them regularly. This is what, by the way, in the Second Amendment, well regulated. That's what that means. It doesn't mean regulated by the government. It means well regulated means that you train, your stuff is in good order, and you have good discipline amongst yourself and the people that you train with, right? So that's really what all that meant. And so today, I historically, every time there's a Bitcoin conference, I will usually run a range day on the side. And it started out with, I just took a bunch of people from the company that I was working with at the time who were all Bitcoiners. We got a private range. We just, did it. And it was like, there was a lot of interest. So the next year we did it again. There was like 24 people. And then the next year we did it again. And at one point I ran a range day. I think this was for Nashville 24. We had like 62 people out there.
Very
I
cool.
probably won't ever do that again.
You're the only instructor on site?
Oh, no.
Oh,
No,
okay.
that's impossible. That's
Yeah.
very dangerous. Like
Yeah, yeah.
you want to have a safety, range safety officer, which is their whole role is not instructing. They're there to watch for safety. But you want one of those for every 2, 3, 4, depending on the
So you've got a whole team of
experience
guys
level.
with you. That's great.
Ton of, and I don't want to seem like I'm the only one. Like I had a bunch of volunteers. None of these guys were paid. Many of these guys are better instructors than me, actually. And they all volunteered their time. These are former special forces guys, former SWAT guys that came out and just taught a whole bunch of people. We had a great day.
That's awesome.
And yeah, we do this to bring this full circle. I do this regularly on the side. I don't do this really to make money. I do it because I believe in it. I think it's important. And we're training with a group of people now every single month. And we're actually launching this new thing called Citizen Rifleman. And there'll be more about this soon.
Okay.
But the idea is you have a group of people that you know and you train with regularly, like every month. There are specific standards that you're trying to achieve in terms of skills, actual drills and tests that you will shoot to see if you're actually at a certain standard of performance. Can you move and operate with a team? All the things.
Cool.
And there's going to be an app, and you can basically form a local home team of citizen riflemen together, where you train, use the app, you can track your own progress, see if you're improving. You'll actually be able to compete against other teams all over the United States.
What a great idea. That is fabulous. I mean, it's like, it just hit me. It's like the CrossFit of shooting.
Yep.
That's really cool.
You want to see something crazy?
Yeah.
Can I share this? Can I share this for a second?
Give it a shot.
Let's see. Pow. Can you see that?
Yep. Got it. Oh, this is great. Yeah. What a great idea, Alex. Good job. That's really cool.
Yeah, we're excited about it. It's a labor of love. Like, I don't intend to make any money with it, but I do believe that outside of like just regular competition. So let me just say this one last thing about it, if I can. I've competed in USPSA. I competed in IDPA. I'm not going to say I was that awesome. What I will say is that I learned there were shooters that were way better than me, and I needed to get better. But on top of that, what I learned is that the stuff that they do in those kind of competitions, if you did it in a fight, high chance of getting you killed, in my opinion. They didn't actually train fighting stuff. They're training speed and accuracy, which there's nothing wrong with that. Movement, speed, and accuracy. Nothing wrong with that. But coordinated fighting with other people against some hostile person or whatever is a completely different thing. And I think that there's a lot of people in America who would like to do that kind of training if there was some kind of structure.
Yeah.
There are little groups of guys doing it all over the place right now.
Right.
But there's no kind of like standardized way of looking at your performance.
Yeah, that is so cool. I mean, when I've looked into lessons for the family, and we've done some shooting, you sort of get, your day on the range, and you get some basic instruction, how to proper technique, etc. But there's nothing like that I've seen where it's like that, where it's like, what would a real world, like, it's one thing to go to a range and target practice, right? But what would a real world situation look like, and how would you handle that?
Yeah.
That's a totally different ballgame.
Totally different ball game. Being able to shoot a gun and hit a target is one thing if you're standing still.
Mm-hmm.
Target's not shooting back at you.
Yeah.
There's no cover considerations. There's no movement.
Yeah.
There's no any of the things that actually matter, right?
Right. Yeah. Wow. That's great. Well, yeah, I'm going to, when you get that site up and running, let me know. That's something I'd be really interested in. That's really cool.
Yeah. You bet.
Staying on this sovereign stack, you're also deep into homeschooling, a supporter of it and a believer in it. So I assume you think, like I do, that the public education system is seen much better days than where we're at today. Maybe tell us a little bit about your thoughts there, and where you think we're going in education in this country, the benefits of homeschooling.
Yeah. So public education system, horrible. It's horrible. My view is, I was just responding to Adam O'Brien, who's the CEO of Bitcoin Well, about this. Homeschooling's hard. It's not easy, but it's like, if as parents, it's our responsibility to prepare our children for life. No one said that was going to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can take the easy path if you want to, but that's not the job. The job is doing what's right for the kids. And if that means it's hard, well, welcome to being an adult, right? That's adulting. The public education system in America has absolutely failed us. It's garbage. It's, in my opinion, the standards have been lowered. Kids can't do math. They can't read now. Because of the amount of time kids are spending on screens, we're seeing measurable changes in IQ from generation to generation now. And for the first time, it's actually dropping. The overall average is starting to drop. And I think, unfortunately, the public education system has been kind of like it's been politicized. It's basically a political indoctrination camp for one team at this point. And I'm not sure how much the kids are actually learning science and mathematics and reading and all the important critical thinking. How do you actually solve problems? Like all those kinds of things. In my experience, kids who've gone through homeschool, the big kind of pushback or the big objection is typically, well, they're going to be freaks. They're not going to be socially adjusted. They're not going to know how to talk to people. It's actually the opposite of that. I find homeschool kids have better interpersonal skills than all the kids going to public school. They know how to sit there and have a conversation with an adult, look them in the eyes, have a decent handshake, and have a real conversation with thinking below the surface level, right? Their skills are better. They're usually better at all the basic educational type parameters you would want to see. I homeschooled my kids for a time. And yes, there was kind of a mix of them going to school, but homeschool as well. But I would say that, I think it's way, way better. And I highly encourage people to do it. And people are like, well, the problem is that public school becomes like free daycare.
100%.
And it's a financial consideration for a lot of people. I get that. I understand that.
Yeah.
But it's like, no one said you couldn't get together with 5 or 6 other or 10 other families in your area and hire a teacher yourself.
Yeah.
Somebody should do that, by the way.
I mean, I've heard of people doing it. I don't know any. I've heard it secondhand. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting concept because you get a couple dozen families together. You could hire a pretty significant individual to, do a great job for your children.
Yeah,
So,
and you could have direct input on the curriculum.
mm-hmm.
You could also participate as parents, right? If you had 10 families working together, for example, if one parent was a computer programmer, for example, or one parent was an AI specialist, like take one day a week.
Yeah, right.
For
volunteer at the school.
And volunteer. Go in there and teach them stuff that matters.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah, real world stuff. Both of my kids have pursued real world education through hands-on technical schools as well as apprenticeships or saving the money, buying the tool, and figuring out how to build XYZ. And
Heck yeah.
they have learned so much more through that process than they ever learned at school.
Yeah.
And it teaches them how to solve the basic problem of life. Like, I want X. How do I get there? And how do I make that happen? You know, I
Congrats. Good for
can't
you,
I
dude.
can't recommend it enough for people. And actually, a really interesting thing that my son participated in was, gosh, I'm going to forget the name of her program now. I think it's like degreefree.co. Anthony Pompliano's podcast introduced this to me right when my son was getting out of high school. And so she works with your student for through 5 different meetings, works with your child to figure out like really what is their passion and where do they want to go, and does that passion align with a career path and a lifestyle path, right? So it doesn't start with, I want to be a doctor. It's, what kind of life do you want to live?
Yeah.
What are your interests? Here are careers that would allow you to live that type of life in that part of the world and achieve your financial goals, and it aligns with your passion. And then taking those options and whittles them down into, here's the steps you could take to achieve that without going to college.
Yeah.
And really, really cool. They do a great job. And it's I think these alternatives to the kind of classic educational path are going to be so important for kids in the future. I worry about kids today that are in college and coming out with debt and being faced with what's going to transpire with AI and the ability to get a decent paying job.
For sure.
So I always took the idea, well, at the very least, they'll be able to know how to take care of themselves and fix their own
Yeah.
cars and build fences, grow food, whatever it might take, right?
Well, and the other thing to consider, if there's a young person listening to this, consider the trades.
Yeah.
Go learn to be an electrician or a carpenter or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, for the longest time, those kind of things have been considered like, oh, those are second class, kind of like, these are not prestigious.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? They're making some of the most money of
They
any
are.
profession out there right now.
That's right.
And sure, the work might be a little bit harder than sitting at a desk or whatever, but so what?
Yep.
Like, I mean, a lot of that stuff, AI is not going to take your job.
Yeah, and you get out and you get sun and you get exercise.
Exactly.
You're not stuck in a chair staring at a computer like Alex and I.
Exactly.
It's a win-win. So let's pull it back to Bitcoin before we wrap up. What do you think about the 4-year cycle? Is it over? What do you think about 2025, and where are we going in 2026?
Sure. So 4-year cycle seems to be over for sure, at least on a timing perspective. If you overlay, previous cycles, some people might say, well, this is just, you're taking out all the volatility and it's diminishing returns. Yeah, maybe. But part of me is like, nah. And the reason why I'm like, nah, is the mathematics of absolute scarcity are going to continue to manifest. Like, this is not over yet, right? You've got Sailor out there buying billions of dollars of Bitcoin every single month. They're at over 700,000. They're something like 3.5% of the entire supply.
Yeah.
One company.
Yeah.
Hello? There are hundreds of thousands of companies out there. There's probably 10,000 companies that are have the size and capability or greater than Strategy.
Yep.
Right? We haven't scratched the surface. The more of that Bitcoin that gets bought and essentially taken out of circulation, the more this mathematics of absolute scarcity is we're going to see it. Right? So do I think the cycle's done? Yeah, I think it's pretty much done. I mean, if in fact this is a bear, some people are saying we've been in a bear market. I don't know about that. I feel like if you look at Bitcoin's performance going back over a year, we've basically been in one trading range for over a year. It's like between about 80,000 and the all-time high. It's kind of just bouncing in there for over a year. To me, that's more like consolidation. It's not like a bear market. Like if you want to
Yeah.
measure it from the all-time high, fine. We're 30% off or 40% off of the all-time high. So what? But it's still a range. We're trading in a range. This is called consolidation. We're building a massive, massive base, something like 8 million Bitcoin rotated hands in 2025.
That's
8 million,
insane.
right?
Yeah.
So people want to point to it and go, the price is only it's only $91,000, right? So it's dead. Like this thing's over, just buy gold instead. But it's like there's so many people selling, and it's like, you know what people are missing when they say that kind of stuff? What they're missing is, sure, there was a lot of selling, but somebody was buying all that too. There's two sides of this. There's a bid, a massive bid.
Yeah.
And this is all foundational, man. I really think that I'm not sure if it's 26 or 27, but we're going to break out of this current trading area, and I don't think it's going to go down. I think it's going to go substantially higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. Do you kind of take the opinion, like I've heard other analysts say this is like the IPO moment, where long-term holders are distributing to new holders.
Yeah. I
For the
mean,
next
this
move.
is, it's not just the IPO. It's like all assets operate this way. You
Right.
have your initial investors, right,
Mm-hmm.
that own the majority of it. They have to divest their holdings for more people to buy it. This is very logical. You think about it. It had to occur. Like, and it will continue, by the way. Like all the people that were buying in these first 15 years of Bitcoin's life, you don't think those people are going to sell 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 years from now, or their kids will?
Right.
Right? There's going to be a continuous churn. There's 8 billion people who need this stuff.
Yeah. Let's wrap up on this, but I want to, I'm always trying to come back to sort of what I think is such a great core culture of Bitcoin. And, we oftentimes kind of just simply say Bitcoin fixes this and fix the money, fix the world. But very few people actually paint the picture, right? Of like, what does that future look like? What sort of like historical references can we connect to kind of inform us of what a hard money future might look like for humanity? And so I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that. Like, what does society look like in the next 10, 20, 30 years? What does our kids' future look like as we move towards a Bitcoin standard?
So that's very deep. And I'll say that I think longer term, maybe 20 plus years out, it's looking really good. I think life is looking super hopeful. I think when you combine what can potentially happen with AI and storing our economic energy in Bitcoin versus fiat, I think the world could be a very awesome place to be. I think there's going to be a lot of struggle between now and there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it could get a lot messier. And we'll see. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see. It's really going to come down to how much economic energy is shunted into Bitcoin over time. And we're very, very early still. And that's the message I'd like people to know. Like, if you're looking at Bitcoin and you're thinking, should I get this thing? It's like, look, you don't need to own one whole Bitcoin. You understand? There's only 21 million of those, right? Like 0.27% of the population maybe can own one Bitcoin. It's just not going to be common, right? 0.5, 0.25. I mean, shoot for 0.1 right now. Get to 0.1. You get 0.1, add from there if you can. But Bitcoin is 0.2% of global assets. It's not even scratching the surface of the surface. This thing has a very long way to run.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Alex, I mean, tell everybody where they can follow you. I know you're doing some shows of your own.
Mhm.
Give our audience an opportunity to track you down and learn more.
Sure. If you're on X, I'm at Alex Danzig on X. That's a little hard to spell. But my name is on the screen right there. So it's at Alex Danzig on X. I usually post my show, which is the Bitcoin Crucible, on there when we're doing that. That's probably the best way to reach me. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can look me up on LinkedIn if you want to, if you're older or whatever.
Awesome. Well, you guys make sure to like and subscribe so we can always keep bringing you guests like Alex here. You're phenomenal. I appreciate your time today, buddy. Thank you for everything. And we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.